Is it really possible to learn a language in 3 months? Lots of internet polyglots and language tutors would have you believe so, but I had an opportunity recently to put it to the test. I knew in advance I'd be going to Los Angeles, aka Tehrangeles, where there are 700,000 Farsi speakers, and I've always had an interest in Farsi, but I've never had the time and the motivation to really study it. So with just under 3 months, it was game on. If you don't know me already, I have a PhD in linguistics and a handful of languages under my belt. I've even published on Farsi. So if anyone could do it, it should be me. And I made it as easy on myself as possible. I know the script, but I use transliteration. I used a cutting-edge, evidence-based approach to learning and memorization, and I had native tutors. More on that in a minute. And I had very specific, looming make-or-break goals. I was going to speak Persian in real-world situations in just under 3 months. So with everything going for me, could I do it? Yes. And no. Stick around to find out why, what worked and what didn't, and also to hear me speak some Farsi. And at the end, I'll talk about the importance of going beyond the words and ensuring you don't embarrass yourself through cultural ignorance like I almost did. I'm Dr. Taylor Jones, and this is Tiad Belaban. This is Language Jones. خوش اومدید. میدونم که میخواید یک سوال از من بپرسید. جونز جون، حالا میتونید فارسی صحبت کنید؟ 3 ماه پیش من اصلا نمیتونستم فارسی حرف بزنم. من حدود 3 ماه فارسی یاد میگیرم و الان میتونم در مورد چیزهای ساده صحبت کنم. اما fluent in 3 months؟ خواهش میکنم. نه بابا. I learned a ton, and I can politely navigate in a lot of the situations I'm most likely to find myself in, ordering food, shopping, making small talk about the weather. But would I call myself fluent? Not by a long shot. So what worked and what didn't? Was it worth it? And what would I do differently? Here's what I did. I used the Routledge Colloquial Persian course, 3rd edition. It's available with an affiliate link below. I chose it in part because it has transliteration throughout and a lot of audio content. I studied every day, first going through all the grammatical concepts in the textbook at a pace of about 2 chapters a week, while adding Anki cards with audio and images, and later more intensively adding all of the exercises, usually 10 sections of around 10 questions each for 1,000 per chapter. I was doing 100 new cards a day, but I've slowed that intense pace since my experiment ended. I also supplemented with italki, which I wish I'd done more of. Unsurprisingly, they're this video's sponsor. italki site internet و برنامه روی گوشی موبایله. اونا دارند معلم ها که زبان مقصد او را حرف میزنند و میتونید با 1 به 1 کلاس ها زبان او را بخونید. They're personalized, so I guess that's درس شخصی هستند. This isn't exactly what my textbook taught. Anyway, اگه او $10 بخرید، اونا میدندتون $5 برای کلاس اولتون. اون هدیه است. But that's only if you use my promo code Jones05. If you speak Farsi, by the way, let me know in the comments how I'm doing. I intended to work with Hale, who I had a good experience with previously, but I was on the West Coast for most of the time. I could have used italki, and I couldn't line up with her. Or Shabnam, who I'm going to be studying with soon. I ended up taking a chance on Johnny, and I'm glad I did. We had an excellent conversation, and I learned a lot, even reviewing the basics. For instance, I didn't know that people have regularized the pronominal paradigm so that the colloquial third-person singular is not u, as I learned in every textbook I've seen, but un.
So bear in mind, Taylor, we never say "oo" in a speech.
Okay.
All the time we say "oo" and
Un.
"oo" is just
Un also is like in, un, like,
yeah. "Un" is also.
but it's the same
like
pronunciation,
that.
right? Okay.
Yeah, that is kind of like that in
Okay.
English. So it has 4 different meanings: he, she, it, and also that.
Okay.
He, she, it, and also that. So it's a gender-neutral pronoun
Yeah.
in Farsi. And
I mentioned pronouns, so those playing the home game, take a shot. I also got confirmation of my suspicion that while on turns to un in words like Tehran and Isfahan, it doesn't when it's a formal-ish plural marker, as in Mardan. Now, I have a child at home and work that's not being a public intellectual, so I was as consistent as I could be, but some days it just didn't happen. But I was pretty confident. We planned an itinerary across multiple days with Persian ice cream. I'm talking date, and saffron and cardamom, even cucumber ice cream. And of course, meals, including kebab and gourmet sabzi and ashe reshte. Plus bookstores, gift shops, the works. So first was Kebab Faraj, which is an LA institution. They're a kosher butcher and restaurant with special catered meals for Friday nights, including kuku gerdu and gondi. We had kubide and gourmet sabzi, but there was a wrinkle in my plan. First, when I went in to place my order, I was psyched to speak Persian, but I was greeted at the counter by Jose. It was LA. Second, it was all rattling around in there, but my time from inspiration to speak to actual speak production, I realized that if I'm going to really speak this, I need to do more time in communities where it's spoken just to be around it. I had that with French every time I went to France, but not with Persian yet. And I had an inkling I'd have both of these problems when I got vegetarian food for the family in DC, the third largest Persian area outside of Iran, and had the same issues. My slowness was thankfully rendered irrelevant by a Latin American waitstaff again. But regardless whether you speak Persian and regardless whether you keep kosher, Kebab Faraj is a must visit if you're in LA. Hands down, the best gourmet sabzi I've ever had, and the staff and owners were tremendously kind. We went back the next day to have lunch and pick up dinner for the family, and we were lucky enough to meet Faraj himself. In the evening, we went out to check out the bookstores, and it was then that we realized that there's really two Persian neighborhoods in LA. One is primarily Christians, Zoroastrian, atheists, and other. They fly the flag of the Shah, quite literally. They have I am a Shah posters. The first three words they would have preferred that I learn are Zan, Zindagi, and of course, Azadi. But there was also a bit of an edge. I totally couldn't describe it, but I went into one bookstore ready for Khaste Nabashid, but before I could even initiate Ta'aruf, Persian politeness, I was met with, "Why are you here?" Another bookstore had no browsing, which seems like a weird model for a bookstore, honestly. The other neighborhood didn't fly the flag of the Shah, but of Israel. And people stopped on the streets to bless our baby, but this may have been more about it being Purim Katan and less of an everyday thing, I don't know. I'm told all the Muslims moved to Anaheim, by the way. So there's social divisions readily apparent on day one among diaspora populations, no surprise there, except it totally did surprise me. And it wasn't profiling or anything, it was just our experience there as obviously not Persian. I joked with family later that for the non-Jewish Persians, it was their first exile and diaspora, and they're probably just not used to it yet. As for books, I got these. I'm told that this is approximately like a Tom Clancy or Dan Brown level. Perfect. And this history of Persian and English looks amazing, but I have had to decipher his English a bit. He definitely said that after a king died, his son had to take the reign. So that evening, we go to Elias Kebab, a kosher kebab stand in an alleyway. It was that or Kulo Farangi, which I think means European hat. Anyway, they serve American Chinese food and Persian food. I'm told that I missed out, but it just seems like too much. We got gourmet sabzi. Side note, when I like something, I love to compare how different people make it. And we also got kebab and sabzi polo, and they gave us tadig. Excellent, excellent food. The next day, before going back to Faraj, we stopped at a shop named Cadeau. Something about the French name to me, despite being literally in French, screamed Persian. And this is where I got to use not just language, but cultural knowledge. So it's story time. First thing you have to know is that all day, both days, people spoke to me and my wife in English, but our baby in Farsi, which I love. No idea why. And interestingly, that was both a way to learn a little Judeo-Persian that wasn't in the textbook and also an opening to speak myself. On the Judeo-Persian, while the textbook teaches Salam, what we actually heard was Shalom Bashid. It was pretty decipherable with the appropriate knowledge. The other thing that you have to know, that I mentioned in previous videos, is that knowing all of the words does not equip you to speak Persian at all, because there's ritualized politeness called ta'aruf. Buying something in a store might be something like this. Bebakhshid, haste nabashid, salamat bashid, befarmayin qurban. Mikham yak az in kharidam. In ham. Dastetun dard nakone, saratun dard nakone. And if there's food, there's nushejun. Two of the best known forms of ta'aruf are if you're offered food, you say you already ate or are already full, and you decline it. Sir shodam. 3 times, by the way. The person offering must offer it 4 times. On the 4th, you can say, you'll take a little. And 2, if you compliment something of mine, I must offer it to you 3 times and you must turn it down. I will offer you the shirt off my back. If you actually take it, you're a jerk. So that in mind, I noticed a book I was interested in, a Siddur or prayer book in both Hebrew and Farsi. I asked the owner of the shop, she made this hat by the way, which I had already decided to purchase, about the book. She asked if I could read Farsi and had me read a few lines. She said it was made for their family and is not for sale, and lots of people ask about it as a novelty, but that because I had been learning Farsi, she wanted me to have it. Perfect, I thought. A chance not to fall into a ta'aruf trap. So I said, no thank you. She said, no really, please take it. I said, no, I couldn't. She put it in my hands. I said, no again. She said, no, please take it. We actually have 2. Just be sure to remember Shlomo and Sarah when you use it. That was 3. But it was time to pull out the big guns, so I set it down on the counter and I said, Chayesh mikonam, ta'aruf nakonid. She said, Man ta'aruf nemikonam. Hey, wait, who taught you that? Long story short, she put it in my bag after we had paid for everything else we bought, and I now have this beautiful interlinear Farsi and Hebrew siddur and a window into Judeo-Persian that goes way beyond reading a Wikipedia page or a chapter in a handbook. I might be updating the Wikipedia page in a bit, honestly. If anyone watching knows Shoshana from Kado and I did just do Taraf wrong, please let me know. So we make it back to Kebab by Faraj for another fantastic meal and to pick up a Friday night dinner with Gondi, which I've never had. They were super busy, but Faraj himself came out and said hello to us and of course spoke to our daughter in Farsi. Random strangers were again blessing the baby. You should have a happy life, and saying Shabbat Shalom to her. And the whole time we had some truly excellent meals, including a fair amount of free tastes. I had osh torshi on the second day, a sort of pickled vegetable soup for the first time. All in all, it was a fantastic few days. The only downside was that I never had gondi because of a mix-up with a single bag in our order. So, what would I do differently? Well, what I wouldn't change is the Routledge Colloquial textbook and my study process, which I live stream some of. I'll keep regular live streams coming up with Modern Hebrew and Levantine Arabic. Who knows? Maybe we'll solve the Middle East, you guys. But I would do 3 things differently. First, I would take more time. I had an artificial time constraint, so this was out of my hands, but in order to finish getting to B1 or B2 in Farsi, I'll be continuing on my own. 2 months just isn't enough. Second, I would have planned to use more italki and use it earlier in my studies. I've never regretted having more lessons on italki, but I have regretted having too few. I have regretted in-person classes, including a disastrous in-person Persian class that made me not study Persian for 10 years until just now. I'll tell that story at the end. Also, in-person Persian is really hard to say. And third, I would not allow myself as much time on a card on Anki. I trained myself to generate the language I wanted to say, but to be as slow as hell doing it. If it's not there immediately, it's not a good on Anki. And if it's not there in less than 2 seconds, it's going to be one that I see again within 10 minutes. Being able to eventually get there is not good enough. Now, Persian is an Indo-European language with a relatively straightforward grammar. Everything about it that is difficult is similar to English. Hello, phrasal verbs. There are tons of cognates like modar, barodar, mush, and tons of loanwords from French, which I speak, like chauffage or ascenseur. Passable pronunciation is not particularly difficult. I know I need work. And I have a PhD in linguistics, and I have recreationally studied a few other languages and know how to study. I've read books on second language acquisition and implement the best practices. And 2 or even 3 months, even under these conditions, was enough to be able to be polite and hobble through basic interactions, but it was not enough to be fluent by any reasonable standard. I'm more convinced than ever that fluent in 3 months is a marketing gimmick. But maybe it's just that it's snappier than exceptionally far in 3 months at a surprising amount with fluency visible over the horizon. Stick around for one last story, by the way, but let me just say before that, if you like what I'm doing with the channel, please like, subscribe, and above all, comment. You can support the channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/languagejones like these fine people, or right here with super thanks or super chat in my live streams. I'll be debuting an Intro to Linguistics for regular people later this year, and patrons will have access to live streamed additional office hours. Okay, so in-person disaster. My wife and I went to a teacher's apartment. The teacher had been trained under an NYU certifying program that sounded promising and that focused on immersion. Great. The problem is, she didn't teach us anything first. She just spoke to us in Persian. No English, no translation, no pictures even. And it was like, Khosh umadan, chatarand. And we're like, is that how you say how are you? And she's like, Bale, chatarand. And we're like, was that a yes? And she's like, Halatun khube? And we're like, and this lasted for an hour, and for some reason, we stayed. Did I mention that it was August in a non-air-conditioned walk-up apartment in New York, and then we paid her real US legal tender, hard currency, for that experience? Sefre estare. Tosie nakonem. Okay, if you stuck around this far, you probably liked this video, and if you did like this video, YouTube thinks that this one is a good chaser. Until next time, happy learning, and Khoda Hafez.